And good morning to you, Lagos, and thank you very much for joining us for Freshly Pressed 981. It is within this program that will give you detailed analysis of our newspaper stories today, Monday, the 11th of February 2019. We're in the election week, Lagos, and we have in the studio a birthday boy, Ikemesit Effiong. Good morning.
Happy birthday, Ikemesit.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. How do you feel?
Slightly younger.
Uh-huh.
A little counterintuitive, right?
Oh, that's good.
Slightly younger, yeah.
That's good. We have a gift downstairs. And good morning to you, Cheta.
Good morning. Happy 30th birthday.
Thanks for
your And of course, welcome to Gbolahan. Gbolahan, you can find him up on Twitter at Mr. G Quest.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Valentine, and a happy birthday.
Thanks.
Cheta's Twitter handle is at Chicksta, CHXTA. Ikemisit's Twitter handle is at Judge Ike. Cheta, bless you. Lagos, we'll start with this first stories, but mindful of the fact that you send your messages through WhatsApp.
0809 444 0981. And also, you can get us on Twitter if you'd like to send us a tweet at Smooth981 and use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. Please include your name and location when sending your messages. Thank you.
Fantastic. Our first story is from Premium Times. The Acting Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has ordered a comprehensive round-the-clock security in all offices and facilities of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. And this is on the premise of the recent attacks we've experienced, or the INEC offices have experienced, with the arson attempts on the Abia and Plateau state chapters and zones of the offices of INEC. Well, take us through the story, Cheta, seeing that we're very close, or 5 days to the elections.
I mean, the acting IGP is correct, so because 2 INEC offices have recently caught fire. One of them, the one in Leah in Abia, was clearly arson. The one in Pamkan in Plateau States appeared to be a drunk security guard playing with a candle, and well, the rest is history. Unfortunately, in both cases, unclaimed PVCs, totaling for both of them a total of 8,966 PVCs were burned. So that's potentially 8,966 voters disenfranchised. It's great that the IGP has pointed out, has noted that this is an issue that needs to be, what's the word? That needs to be tackled. So yeah, we just need to watch.
So one area of concern for me is it would be assumed that they will have some level of security on those offices. And I mean, when I say they, I mean INEC.
Well, like I said, the one in Pamkan, it was the security man himself. I don't know whether it's that they were owing his salaries or what, but he got kind of merry and misplaced his candle.
How about the one for Abia, which is of utmost concern for me? I mean, how do arsonists come into a location and nobody knows or nobody tries to stop them? Because there's no record of that.
No, it's not. There was some protest of sorts. Something went wrong, and these guys just decided to set fire to the place. So it was crowd trouble that's escalated. What we've been unable to confirm till now is whether it was people angry at delays in getting their PVCs and decided cynically that, okay, since we won't vote, nobody will vote, or whether it was one thing that has been of concern is whether it was the pro-Biafra movement that did that in trying to force people to do their don't vote thing.
And all this
nobody knows what exactly went wrong in Leah.
Uncorroborated suspicions.
What about Plateau then?
Thank you very much.
The Plateau one has been fairly established.
All right, let's move on very quickly to this next story from Punch newspaper. PDP reacts as Buhari says corruption threatens February 16 poll. Still looking at the election that starts this weekend, presidential elections built for February 16 this Saturday. We find that the president wrote an op-ed, or one of some of the dailies. In this op-ed that he personally wrote, we see one of the few ways or few instances of the president being very expressive. He's mentioned corruption as being one of the major factors that is fighting against, or as inimical to the progress of Nigeria and the elections in general. It says that's not the only issue. There's insecurity and inequitable economy. But the PDP is alluding to the fact that the president is making this statement and saying, first, that it's just, him speaking on shaky boots. But what are your thoughts, Ikemesit?
Well, I think first we should distinguish between an op-ed that was personally written and an op-ed that was personally bylined.
Thank you.
I think it was more likely the later than the former.
Are you saying President correct?
No, he
didn't
I
say
just
that,
said
Cheta.
there was a distinction. Cheta, I'm in the place of Zen. I'm not
Yes.
dealing with you today.
Okay,
Yeah. So to the larger point, I think when you look at the entire currency, I think at least from the 2011 presidential campaign, which was I think the third presidential campaign that the president participated in, he has clearly made the political decision that zeroing in on a message of fighting corruption would be his strong selling suite. What we are slowly observing during this particular election cycle is that that message isn't necessarily as resonating with some of the key demographics, the key voting blocks here in Nigeria as it did in 2015, in large part because when you are the opposition, it is a lot easier for you to make a case that essentially is formed around railing against the system than when you've had 4 years to do something about it. So the question then becomes, as president and as commander-in-chief, what are some of the substantial things that you've been able to accomplish in the fight against corruption? Your accomplishments are essentially tenuous at best. We've had a situation where at least since January, not really since January, but at least since the later part of last year, the president has become more confrontational in terms of being perceived to be attacking some of the most vital institutions of state, as it were, the judiciary being probably the most outstanding example of that. And so it's one thing to write about this, it's another thing to put it out there. It's an altogether matter, and it's an altogether different matter in terms of trying to gauge how this will be received. For most people, they are more concerned about their economic well-being now. I think the economy is a much more resonant message now. And the current administration is not necessarily perceived to be very, very strong in terms not only of the messaging, but in terms of its actual policy implementation in this regard. So it makes sense for the president to de-emphasize what is clearly a disadvantage to it and emphasize what he thinks is an advantage. But lots of people are even querying the fact that that's an advantage for the president right now, 1 week out from the polls.
But what do you make, Ikemesit, what do you make of the insinuations by the national chairman of the PDP, Cheta Nwaeze? He mentioned that the president is, by this speech, looking for excuses to enable him postpone the elections. I mean, that was debunked. That was a suspicion that was debunked in 2018, September, by the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, when he, responded to those rumors saying that there's not going to be any postponement of the elections. So why grappling on this still?
Well, it makes sense from a political posturing standpoint for the PDP to spin this that way to begin with. But when you look at, say, for example, the last story that we talked about, the high number of uncollected PVCs, coupled with the fact that we seem to be set up already to see significant security challenges during the election. That's the PDP's insinuation is not plucked out of the sky. There seems to be some validation to that fact. Now, I think it will be tantamount, it will be more chaotic and it will be tantamount to really stressing the entire system if less than 7 days out we are mulling a postponement. So it might be unlikely.
6 days before.
Yeah, I know, but then again, it came with its own challenges.
Exactly.
We're dealing. This is a different political climate. This is a different election cycle. It will be a lot more.
Yeah, but the point is, it can occur. It can occur.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on to this next story from the Vanguard newspaper. CBN to combat 1.6 trillion naira excess liquidity in February amidst rising business confidence. So the business confidence index by which they are measuring this for February rose to 62.1% from 25.9% for January. Now, this increase, is it relative to economic growth, or should we be very optimistic based on this high number? Gbolahan?
Well, normally what you would usually find out is that the CBN normally conducts this survey on a monthly basis, and it's the confidence index survey that is usually conducted across all business sector and managers of businesses as well to see. It's usually called a lagging indicator anyway. No, sorry, not a lagging indicator. It's a forward indicator that actually shows the projection for growth, or if there's business confidence going forward. And so what this report is that, you know, we're talking about February's indicator now, which is talking about 62%. Compared to January, 25%. So there's a lot of optimism anyway from the business segment as well, to that the Naira is going to be stable going forward, if not even it will appreciate as well too. There's also prospect as well to that the business outlook going forward for 12 months looks more promising than usual. So, you know, these indicators are showing that we're expected to see a little bit of growth. However, I dare say that we'll be seeing 3% growth anyway for this year. This week, we're going to see the fourth quarter GDP figures being released by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. So, of course, that will give us an indication of what 2018 growth figures were. I mean, as at third quarter anyway, we were at about 1.9% or so. So, we're waiting to see what we would end the year with or so. So, I mean, business owners are saying things look promising. Exchange rate, Naira might be stable, if not even appreciate. But against that, we're now talking about mopping up liquidity by the CBN, which is something that has been ongoing for quite a while now. CBN does the OMO market on a monthly basis, and this report is actually
OMO being open market operations.
Yes, that's where they mop up liquidity from the market. Okay. And this month, they're actually anticipating that there's going to be an inflow into the money market by about 2.33 trillion naira. That is pretty much, we're talking about the FAC allocations and some other securities maturing. Anyway, we're going with this now is that we're looking at, yes, growth in the economy, but we're also now talking about mopping up liquidity. We know the importance of having money in the system. I mean, we're talking about financing businesses and what have you. And a lot of startups are struggling with finance in Nigeria. So when you mop up liquidity, of course, it makes it difficult for you to source for finance, and it makes it difficult for growth. So let's see how the next few months pans out anyway in terms of growth for the nation.
Thank you very much. We have messages on WhatsApp. This one is coming from Val. It says, some of us got the temporary card, but on getting to INEC to pick up the PVC, they told us our record does not exist. I smell a fat rat, he says. Bengus says, the president has done a lot on the fight against corruption. We can sit in the comfort of our air-conditioned studio and discredit the gains of the administration on corruption. But those who've been jailed and those who have had the proceeds of their corruption permanently forfeited to the federal government, hence depriving them of enjoying their loot, perfectly understand and know what is real. I need PMB for another 4 years, he says, to continue the fight.
Interestingly, later on we have a few we have a story about this. Looters and who has been convicted and not convicted.
Speaking about convictions, looters and non-looters, well, the SERAP, that's the Socio-Economic and Accountability Project, they requested the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, to provide, under the Freedom of Information Act, to provide documents and records of those who looted money, those who are awarded contracts and went away with the money, to provide the names and identities of those people. But that was not forthcoming. So they took the matter to court, so the Federal High Court in Lagos, and asked that this names be published and provided for. But then that was not responded to. It was until after this case was taken to court that they got a reply from the office. But take us through this story, seeing that this has been a call that has been resonating in the minds of a lot of Nigerians over time. Can I say?
Yeah, so what SERAP said to explain away the discrepancy in the dates was that even though Fashola's letter was dated on the 27th of January, they only received it on the 7th of February after they had gone to court, and I think we talked about the story last week.
Yes.
Yeah, on Freshly Pressed. So what the ministry's reply essentially said was that the record and the information that Sarah applied for is not within their custody, and they just left it at that. But Sarah has come out to say that they're not satisfied with our response, and they want the Minister of Power, Works and Housing to and this is a direct quote, take proactive steps to obtain the information from any other public institution or agency that may be holding the requested information and to send them the information without further delay. They further added that they really do not want to make the court make them do it.
Yes.
Right now, where did this all start from? SERAP decided to make the demand after the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar alleged that some contractors who were awarded fat electricity contracts have essentially disappeared after being fully paid for those contracts. The ministry has denied it. The opposition party has called it political horse trading, but SERAP thinks there is some substance to this, and they essentially want the Ministry of Power not just to issue a statement denying it, but to actually show facts to indicate that this is
Proof.
This is not the exact state of things. So it seems like this back and forth will be going would exist for a while, but now that the matter is essentially sub judice and it's in court, the Prime Minister can simply say, okay, now you're taking us to court, we can't do anything while the matter is up there since it's sub judice. So it might take judicial intervention of some sort to see if we can possibly get this information. I had said last week, this is very important because the power sector is not only one of our most critically important ones, but it's also one of our most hobbled.
Yes.
Right? And so it's so opaque that a lot of ordinary Nigerians simply cannot understand why we cannot have consistent power. You speak to the experts, and everybody can, and you get an entire laundry list of reasons why. But the point is fundamentally what is going on because occupations are made every year for this sector.
So where's this money going?
So where is the money going to? Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ikemesit. Like you mentioned, our eyes will still keep our eyes on this story, and hopefully you get to see the end of it and what comes of it. Moving away to our next story, Nigeria signs agreement with Afreximbank, that is the bank industry, and the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. So we have here that they've signed with the Nigerian, the federal government on Friday signed investment agreements with the three development finance institutions. Now, this is set to be able to get, to generate $30 billion, 1.5 million jobs from made in Nigeria for export, according to the president.
This setting up of special economic zones is great news.
Yes.
I mean, and
Made in Nigeria.
I was shocked that Buhari signed it because Buhari states in his inclinations, but good on him for signing it, and I congratulate him. A bit of background on what a special economic zone is all about. The first three special economic zones were set up in China. So in 1978, after the disaster that was Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping constituted a plenary of the Central Committee, and they agreed with him that the communist way was not necessarily delivering progress for their people as fast as it was needed. Now, China under Mao Zedong had pretty much like Nigeria of today, where they were talking, the only talk that they had was of cleaning up the system, morals, corruption, the glorification of poverty and all of that. Yeah. That was Mao from 1949 till he left the stage in 76. By the time he died, Nigeria was better than China. Let's put it in that. So Deng came and he said, it doesn't matter whether a cat is white or black, provided it catches rats. And one of the things that he did was he visited the US, he opened up, so he set up three special economic zones in Shantou, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, on the proviso that these areas will run on a purely capitalist model. Free trade will be, free enterprise will be allowed. Let us see how they do. What was common to the three zones at the time relative to the rest of China was that they were not densely populated. So Shenzhen, for example, had 30,000 people at the time. Now, these three SEZs proved so successful that after the Yangtze Boat Conference of 85, a further 14 cities were added to the scheme. And by 1990, more cities were added. And the rest, as they say, is history. As in, we had spectacular, the fastest economic growth in history happened in China.
Almost as big as Lagos.
Bigger, actually.
Bigger.
Yeah, 30 million now.
There you go.
As in, so the crucial thing is that the Chinese government left those areas clean. So while I'm happy, I'm a bit worried that the places that we have picked, Aba, population 534,000, Fontua, population 502,000, Lekki, official population 401,000 as of the last time we checked.
Okay.
Which was
2011.
2011.
okay.
Yeah. So now these areas are already very densely populated. Making something in, the thing about the Chinese zones was that they were relatively clean.
Yeah.
They started almost from afresh and then let them grow and expand. So the
But
question is, these already established areas, you're not going to go to Pound Road in Aba and then pursue my uncle that has his photography studio there, for example. I think it's going to be a bit difficult. That's my
Now that's one difficulty. But before we wrap up this story, another concern in many countries around the world is that they have described these zones as glorified labor camps. So there have been concerns about labor laws and fundamental human
because
rights.
of the drive for cheap labor. It seems like that's
Yes.
the resource.
No, sorry, before you answer, the reason I'm bringing that up is because already in Nigeria we have issues around labor laws and the fact that people are not, people's rights are abused.
speaking as somebody who knows that the ultimate goal is economic growth. Those are, by the way, concerns first. We need to see Nigeria's economic growth last time we measured was 1.9%. Population growth is 3.24%. That is, we need the economy to grow we need the economy to
So whatever
grow
it takes.
at 6.4%
Right.
minimum.
So whatever it
takes. Yes.
All right. Okay, that's arguably whatever it takes, but we'll be looking at that. But interesting points right there. Indeed, very different comparisons with what the original status was with regards to special zones, special economic zones. But just to say that the federal government have mentioned that the Project Mine seeks to position Nigeria as the preeminent manufacturing hub in sub-Saharan Africa and as a major exporter of made in Nigeria goods and services regionally and globally. I see you're not really comfortable with that, Cheta. We have to move on.
We like all these big bestest of just give them light first.
We need to move on.
Okay then, we can see this one. INEC Agbaje trade words over seizing of non-indigenes PVCs in Lagos. Now, the Jimmy Agbaje campaign organization yesterday made very serious allegations accusing officials of INEC of allegedly colluding with the APC to disenfranchise non-indigenous residents in Lagos. It's also important to note the INEC's reaction saying that they're too busy for such and that it's not true. Where do they have time to separate indigenes and non-indigenes? The work is already overwhelming as it is. Ikemesit, what do you have to say about this?
Well, it's quite interesting. Before we got to this story, I think there was a comment from a listener that kind of alluded to that.
Yes,
that is
someone said that earlier on.
Yeah. So initially in studying and in preparing for this story, I thought it may be a bit of a stretch, but the challenge is the intentions or the pretensions of INEC notwithstanding, there has been a significant logistical challenge in PVC collection. And it's become a mini trend on social media for people to triumphantly declare that they have finally received
it's almost
their
like
PVCs.
you would say congratulations when you received it.
Yeah, because the entire system has been quite onerous and laborious. We've got people now, the conversation has now advanced past whether it's a case of xenophobia or ethnicism to why can't we make this as practical as possible for people to get their PVCs? You've got banks that issue cards all the time. You've got people who are able to collect their passports and they are able to collect other, pretty significant documents of identification without as much hassle and as much headaches as this process.
All right.
The process is broken, and we really need to look at it. It can't happen in time for February 16 or even the early weeks of March. But going forward, we really need to look at it.
I think it's important to know. I went to get my PVC on Saturday, and I was able to speak to the director of INEC who was there supervising the process. And one of the things he mentioned as being critical was finance, that it was underfinanced, hugely understaffed, so they couldn't compensate their staff. And he, as a director, it was beyond his remit to be there trying to collate and send out collections, but he had to sit there because they didn't provide enough money.
We've talked about these things on the first couple of times. The fact that not only is INEC underfunded, but the funds are released late, and the entire logistical framework doesn't seem to be
It's
set
fluid.
up well
Yeah.
for people to be able to put in their minds.
All right.
So
Motivation is in
Let's
there.
take quick
All
messages here. Charles from on WhatsApp says, why can we not have power? It's a no-brainer. Corruption. Get rid of that in the system and see. Oluwaseun says, OMO auctions, as open market operations auctions, happen daily actually. Further, we can argue that there is really no correlation between liquidity in the banking system and production in the economy. This is because we have a dislocated financial system where the banks do not create loans even when they have excess liquidity. There's barely any intermediation. CBN's excess liquidity mop-up is more targeted at curbing speculations in the foreign exchange market.
All right, we'll touch on this story. I'll move on to this one here. Arms scam. Federal government fails to probe Buhari's National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongono, and the Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abdulrahman Dambazao. And I'll put that side by side with the fact that Leah Sharibu's family have come out to give an ultimatum to the federal government stating that they should, release their daughter before February 19, which is exactly 1 year when she was abducted in school in Dachi. Cheta, and I guess
Yes. How do you give an ultimatum when you don't have power to enforce it? That we have the anyway.
But it's a valid call.
It's a valid
The
call,
government has
and
been
I feel
very
for them.
silent on that.
The government has been complacent. There's no issue. I really feel for them. But going to the main story, which is the FG fails to probe
Buhari's National Security Advisor.
Mongono and Dambazao. Remember that Buhari set up an investigative panel 3 months after he came into office to uncover fraudulent practices that may have occurred in the procurement of arms for the military between 2007 and 2015. Remember that Dambazao was Chief of Army Staff from 2008 to 2010, which falls squarely within the period. And the current Chief of Army Staff was Director of Procurement at the time. It's important to point that out. Now, while the committee uncovered monumental corruption in the military procurement and indicted many political and military bigwigs, as the report came, almost immediately there was a backlash that they deliberately doctored the report to shield Dambazao. And if memory serves me, on 16th of July 2016, Junaid Mohammed said quite publicly that the report was doctored to shield Dambazao. And shortly after, a spokesman, I don't remember whether it was Sani Usman or John Akin, a spokesman, I don't remember which of them, said, that the documents that concerned Dambazao were missing. So that was how the whole thing.
Important documents missing. And who
Fire
was investigated? Who was held to account for that? Carelessness.
All this one is just talking. The point is, somehow nothing has happened. Now, again, this gives that feeling that the so-called anti-corruption war is one-sided. Compare the speed with which, when it is somebody who is perceived to be not friendly with the government, how the documents appear, the person is. The best example I can give is Babachir. He was indicted. Nothing happened to him until last week when he was taken to court by the EFCC. And a lawyer friend of mine said that this is hogwash, that it's not EFCC that should have taken Babachir, but ICPC. Can the lawyer friend help us?
All right, before your lawyer friend helps you, unfortunately, we cannot take his comment. We have to touch on this one very, very quickly. Leah Sharibu's family, because of course we know that there have been calls from international organizations for the federal government to take action with regards to her release.
Yes, I think it's quite important anyway. I'll just quickly touch on the main point of this article anyway. And it was a reverend by the name of Reverend Gideon Para Malam that actually just weighed in on this conversation as well too. And he was saying that, I mean, this should have been a national issue, should have been really discussed at the political level when we're talking about our presidential candidates now. I mean, it's not really been touched on as well.
It wasn't the questions that we weren't really answered.
Exactly. Not a lot of presidential candidates they speak about this issue as well too. And we're not talking about. Yes, it's important that we have to find a way of ensuring that Leah Sharibu is returned back to her parents. But we're also talking about the security of our children as well too in schools. what is the government doing going forward to ensure that this doesn't repeat itself going forward? What security measures are being put in schools as well? So these are national issues as at present now, and we haven't really touched on it during this presidential debate.
Thank you,
Thank
Gbolahan.
you. Very, very important point right there. Thank you very much, Gbolahan.
Yinka on WhatsApp says the only type of card you can get without hassles is your ATM card. Why? Your money is involved. Let's Google start paying for the card. Isn't it not just 4K to print one? Well, INEC has just the authority to do that. Now, Kingsley sent another message. Agbaje was right. I experienced it. As per INEC response, separation or visual filter is as easy as knowing that Chairman Chukwudi are definitely not Yorubas. How on earth would you say that my card will be ready after the elections, or is it going to be used then? Same INEC said all cards are ready. Serial says, I applied for replacement of my lost PVC since April 2018, but up till now, up till last Saturday when I went to INEC office in Festac when the collection of PVC I was told that my PVC was not ready. And that was the deadline, yes?
Yeah.
But Lagos, thank you so very much for being part of today's
Can I
edition
hear someone?
of Freshly Pressed 981. Special thanks to every one of you, including you, Cheta.
I want to hail the trucks for coming back.
And special happy
Yeah.
birthday to Ikemesit Effiong
you.
and Judge Ike.
Happy
Wish him
birthday
happy
again.
birthday on
Please show
Twitter.
him some love on
Yes.
Twitter.
Who are married?
Special thanks to Mr. G.
No
Quest,
worries.
Gbolahan. Thank you very much. Lagos, coming up next in 14 minutes actually, we talk sports inside of the locker room. Good morning.
The headlines.
I know they do my three stories.